Hello, everybody. It's Deanna, and I am here again with my friend Lori Sica, my favorite Jersey girl. How are you, Lori?
Doing well. Another week in the books.
Exactly, right? But it's Friday, right?
Yes,
It's Friday.
I
So
think so.
I think so too. I didn't think for a minute, like, is it Friday? But yeah, it's Friday. But Lori, I brought Lori on again because I really enjoyed talking with her, and everybody really enjoyed hearing from Lori as well. And today we're going to be talking about writing, and because you do writing, you are working on a few different projects, and I know that I have been interested in writing
Mhm.
as well. I want to write a big book, and haven't done it. So I think this is going to be great because I'm always running across people who will say, "Oh, I want to write a book," right? But that's about as far as they get. Like it doesn't,
Right.
and I'm guilty of that. It doesn't go any further than I want to write a book, right? So tell me a little bit about what you're currently doing, some of your like projects, because you're doing some really cool stuff that you've been working with.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me back. I do want to talk a little bit about what I'm doing, and I want to talk about the process of getting there because I think exactly what you said. Everybody says, I want to write that book. I want to start that blog. And then there's that stuck of, okay, what do I do next? So I started, I think I mentioned last time I was here, I started with a blog basically, and I would write about folks from New Jersey who weren't getting the coverage, who were doing wonderful things, who had generations of businesses that were successful or just, surviving and thriving in dark times. And listening to people's stories really resonated with me because I was raised in an Italian family, and every given Saturday, I was on my grandmother's porch or my aunt's kitchen table listening, and it was the aunts or the uncles or the cousins. There was always stories to be told. And for me, it was awesome because it was not just about what was happening here, it was happening with our family back in Italy. And so I was raised that way. So I want to know all about you. I want to hear your story, and then I want to tell it. The way I learned to do that outside of the informal training was working for PR firms, which if you asked me this 5 years ago, I would have said, this is not my thing. And I struggled a little bit because your creativity is a little bit reeled in because you're working for someone else. But what I did learn how to do is branding. And when you take somebody to build their brand through that brand story, you learn all about them.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing is to not only know the story, tell the story, but to know the story. So as a writer now, I have to be careful about my own issues because I also identify myself as an empath. So I take on my stories, which is good and bad. Because if I believe in what you're telling me and I believe what you want to sell per se, like, on the advertising end, the copywriting end, then I can write forever. But for me personally, I have to have that buy-in. Yeah. So I always go deep with the story, the backstory, the surround story. My current project right now is working with a former baseball player. His name is Jason Grimsley, and he had a 10-year career in Major League Baseball, and it was mostly successful. His claim, his biggest, most people remember him as going into playing for the New York Yankees and playing in the World Series. But the story, Jason's real story, and he'll say this basically, is not so much, the claim and fame of having a World Series ring, which he wears and leaves in places when he wears it. And that was a little joke out to Elizabeth Nader. If she's listening, she's had that World Series giant ring sitting around her house. And so I just had to laugh about that. But
how do you leave your World Series ring places?
It's huge. It's so big. It's like a piece of furniture. So his story though is his dealing with pain that he never really dealt with in his childhood. All the things he did, the 10 years, how he was drafted out of high school. So what it took, literally the night of his graduation, he was taken to camp to try out. And then the 10 years in the league, and then the 10 years after the league, which ultimately led to a very, very dark time in his life. So he really wants to tell that story that all the fame, all the fortune, all the money, all the great things were great, but they didn't fill that hole that he had. It wasn't until he dealt with his past and came to a very dark place that he was able to step out into the light. And he's already helping people in that arena. So the book, it's heavy, and there's a lot of stories. And the way we're working, he lives in Texas, I'm in New Jersey. So the way we're working is through recording. So we'll call and I'll start recording him and his wife, or him, or some of his coaches and his former teammates. And then I am transcribing that into a story. So cleaning up the details. As far as, I know we wanted to talk about ghostwriting and co-writing. Right. He hasn't really, initially he said no to the ghostwriting, and for your listeners, and we'll explain the difference. So I've been saying I am co-writing with him because he's a phenomenal writer. He really is a good writer. But this is also the very first time he's telling the story, which is interesting. Wow. And it's a point to address too. So it's coming out of him, and I'm listening, watching, either we're doing it on video or he has traveled to Jersey. So the story's coming out of him. I'm watching his wife's reaction. She's giving feedback. It's a really interesting process.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. How long does it take to write something like this?
Well, so we'll talk pre-quarantine and then.
Okay, that's fair.
So, and this is something I want to bring up, and I would love if anyone that is listening or watching would respond. So I also work for Elizabeth Nader, for her company, The Ideal Woman. I did a content edit for her book. It was launched in the fall, and it's been great. It's been absolutely great. So I divide my time between working for her, and then I also take time. But for me, I need to be quiet. I need to have that recording playing. I need to listen to Jason's voice when he's here. I just let my little app on my phone do the recording, and I watch him. I watch how he's talking. I watch the expression on his face. So he was traveling to Jersey. He came here 3 months, the first 3 months that we started this project, and then that stopped. And here, home, even though I have a very nice home and we have workspaces all over the place, I find myself creatively stopped. It's as silly as it sounds. I have family members, cousins who will call and say, could you just finish this essay for my son? And they'll give me the 3 bullet points. Done. I've written headlines quickly. I finished blog posts. I've written some copy for websites, but sitting and doing this book has been challenging for me, and I can't figure out why. I don't know what it is. I can find alone, quiet spots, but I personally feel like my creativity comes hard right now, and I think that's partly due to the stress, partly due to the other daily things you do when your 3 adult children are home, living under the same roof with you, yeah. And then partly with what's coming. And so that's my thought, but I'll take any suggestion or any conversation you want to have about that. I'm open to, because I just can't figure it out.
Yeah. And that makes sense that with everything that's changed, that creativity would stop or just be shifted a little bit, right? It's like, I sometimes feel that too with some of the content that I'm creating, just social media content, that it's like you feel like you're kind of like in a snow globe and it just shook up, and it's all right there, but it's like digging through it to find your way.
Yeah. And even my process, I'll give you a little example of a friend of mine got sick, was tested positive for COVID, recovered, and is now back on the front lines working for a health company, basically ambulance and first response. Wow. And none of the local papers picked up his story or anything like that. And I used to actually edit a local online paper. So I said, I have to write this. People need to know he's 20 years old. It's amazing what he's doing. And the events that led from his stepping into that role as an EMT to, coming out of the diagnosis are really amazing. And he's a community guy. And so I woke up one morning and wrote the whole story. But I noticed, and I was thinking about when you had your social media post, my whole process, like I'll write something raw and then walk away from it and come back and do like the edit, or if necessary, have somebody else do the edit, because it's hard to edit what you write. Right. And then I'll send it out, and then I'll get the feedback, and then we publish. I wrote it. I read it. I didn't like it. I changed it. I sent it to him. He loved it. He added things. He mentioned, make sure you do an edit on this. There's some things missing. I'm reading it 3 times over, and I am hesitant to press that send button to the editor that I want to send it to. And I can't tell you why. I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's a great story. We have great pictures, and there's a story that needs to be told. And here I am sitting here. The goal is to do it before 2 p.m. my time today. So it's going to have to happen. Yeah, it's going to have to happen right after we get it.
Oh my God. Yeah. You better hit send.
Yeah. So, and I don't know what that holdback is. Like, even with, as crazy as it sounds, even with Twitter and Instagram, I'm looking at what I'm writing and like 3 or 4 times. I mean, you have to edit, and especially when it's for somebody else, you have to correct. And we all make mistakes. You know, that's what the eraser on a pencil's for.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm harder on myself this time, I feel like.
Yeah.
Right now. And I know there's a couple things. I'm a social person. We talked about that last time. I like to chat. I like to be with people. I like to get a cup of coffee outside or go out for coffee. I like, and all those things, even, you know, the working out is great inside, but I like to be outside. So the things that create that environment for productivity for me personally might have been stilted a little bit. And also, I wouldn't say I'm a news junkie, but I like to know what's going on. I like to know what's happening. And I've had to shut that all off now because, you know,
I had to shut it off like pretty quickly because it was just heavy. It was heavy, and the uncertainty and the heaviness, and then the fighting, even on Facebook, on that I see in my feed with people that I love. And they're either, this is ridiculous, we need to be set free, or they are completely like, no, this is what we need to do. It's going to be worse if we're set free. And I don't really know what the answer is. I don't. But it's just that negative energy of going back and forth. It's heavy. And I just have to distance myself too from it. So I'm with you.
But, and that, I recognize that as a creative flow for me, being, you know, even if it's pop culture, even if it's what's happening locally, or not having that, I think is helping, is slowing me a little bit.
Right. So if anyone's listening that knows how to get past some creative blocks, reach out to Lori.
Yeah, I'll take it. And listen,
and all of us can actually use it because Elizabeth is saying negativity kills creativity. That's so true. And that's it. So yeah, maybe just unplugging, going for that walk, or virtually FaceTiming and having wine with some friends and laughing for a little bit, you know, maybe re-spark that a little bit. I have a question for you. So let's say that somebody does want to write a book, because I get this all the time, and I've shared that with you. You know, I have said it, and other people have said it, like, I want to write a book, and, you know, what do I do? And then it goes there. And I think Elizabeth even made a comment that a lot of people say it, but only 3% actually do it. So what do we do? And we talked about co-writing and ghostwriting. Can you explain the difference between both of those?
Sure. So a ghostwriter does all of the work and gets none of the credit. And I know that sounds negative, but there's a freedom in ghostwriting. So whether you're writing someone's story or you're writing their content, you're writing, you're working, the information is provided to you, but your name isn't anywhere unless the person who hires you makes an agreement. Even, you know, I initially thought that all ghostwriting was, you know, no, your name wasn't anywhere. You were basically a ghost. But sometimes there's an agreement there. The upside, it's great practice, right? Because you're writing and someone else is saying yes, no, or this is good, or this isn't good. And you're also getting paid a lot of money if that's a motivator to write it. It's not a motivator to me. I find that I need to have freedom to write. But also large celebrities and people that have very heavy stories to tell and do other things will typically hire a ghostwriter. So there's a lot to do there. And you can start out real small. It doesn't have to be, you know, the shocking story behind a celebrity's rise and fall. It could be simple as copywriting, you know, for a website content. When you co-author, your name is on the bottom of the book, so to speak. You're given some credits. You sometimes could participate in the publishing process. It all depends on the person that you're writing for or the entity that you're writing for. So that's the main difference, is where your name is.
So if someone would hire you to help co-write a book with them, what is that process like? Like, how does the pay structure happen? What's to be expected after you're hired?
So like any good business deal, you have a contract up front. For me, I have some freedom. I have some wonderful supports that help me on the legal aspect and the wording. Elizabeth has been an absolute angel in that area. So the contract is written towards how the story goes. And usually I'll use some of my own examples. We have a vision first. Just like you have a map for the book, you have a vision for the book too. We're going to write here. We're going to launch here. We're going to do this. And I don't think Jason would mind if I said this. When we started this project, our goal was to launch in October during playoff baseball. The most exciting time, right, is October ball, and we're ending the year and we're changing the season, and it just seemed like a great thing to do. So that's taken a hard left really right now, because we don't know what the fall is going to look like. And also my writing process is slower. But as far as the payment structure is going, we divided the cost. So there's increments. And then that helps me too, because I'm actually in control of that. So if I know, great example, we started in December and both of us have adult children in college. So December was not the ideal month to start a full-on work in progress. Your kids are home.
Right.
So we pushed it to January, but he's very flexible. Now, if you have a really timely piece that's coming out, I think as the writer, whether you're the ghost or the co-writer, you have to really project ahead and say, okay, what are the next 6 months going to look like? What do I have to do in those 6 months aside from this? And is this project something I have to push aside completely? Now, the thing with me, like I said, buying into and believing the story, like I need to go to Texas. I need to walk on that baseball field of Jason's high school. I need to be in that arena. I'm very familiar with New York baseball. I got a big heart for the New York Yankees. So I understand that to an extent, but I need to understand. I told him I need to actually hold that dirt, that Texas dirt in my hand, So it is a big project, and he agreed to most of it, and even mentioned, I need you to go here and I want you to go there, different places in his life that, where he grew up. So that's a big undertaking for now, because travel I'm not flying to Texas anytime soon.
Right.
And, I'm thinking the fall would be the opportune time. Thankfully, he doesn't have a time frame, but everything was mapped out in that initial contract with the payment structure and how we were going to write it. And he's been very flexible. Because it's also not easy. A great example is I need a specific list, and I put together the details for it. And I can't move forward where I'm at until I get that list back from him. And he's in Texas and I'm in Jersey. So, again, the bigger projects, especially if it's a corporate type deal, here's your time frame. You got to make sure your time frame fits that contract. So that is how I structure the pay structure. As far as the writing goes, I'd like him. He has a whole entire, again, we'll use Jason's project. He has an entire collection of poetry and things that he wrote during the time, and you can tell the tone of the piece, whether he was in the light, so to speak, or the dark. And I want to incorporate some of those in between the chapters because they're important.
Oh, that's going to be so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to read this. I love baseball, but and then just this story alone, like I'm curious. I can't wait to read it.
Did both of your boys play? But I know you had a baseball player. Did both of them?
So both of my boys have played baseball from the time they were 6. Now they're in their 20s and they still play on like an adult league. My stepson actually plays for the Pirates, the minor league Pirates team. So great. So baseball, my husband plays baseball. Oh, I hope he doesn't listen to this. It's not my ex, he's my husband. He's my new husband. But he played as well. So we are surrounded. If I took you for a walk around this house, you would see baseball bats and balls and gloves and everything like on display. So we're big baseball fans. Elizabeth, oops. I know, right, Elizabeth? And I was like, oh, he's so gonna love this story. Like, I can't wait for him to hear it. So it may not go on Twitter because that's the only place where he's at.
All right. I'm always there, so I'm gonna hold that back. But I am.
Oh, you can be there. That's okay.
I'm going to tell a story now, an Elizabeth story, because I love this story. And she reminded me of it recently. So when she hired me, it was initially to do the copy, the content edit, which I love to do. I love to dig into a book, as what somebody wrote, experience it. And, your manuscript kind of comes in this large binder. And it was her first run of the book, so to speak. And when I went to pick it up, I felt like I was taking her child.
Wow.
So I put it in the seatbelt of the front seat of my car. And she commented recently that nobody's ever put a seatbelt on a manuscript. But that's what I felt like. I was taking her, and she's a seasoned writer and author and speaker. But this was so important, and it was important to me. And I only kept it in one space in my house, and I never took it anywhere. And it was huge. So it like the binder spanned the whole of my kitchen table. But to spread that out and read it like that and think about it, it gave me, I think, great insight into how to help her, because I got to read it first as a reader, and then I read it as a writer. So I like that little tool too.
Interesting.
It was a lot of fun, and it was a great process with her. The nice part about working with her is we're very different, so we fill the gaps for each other. So there were things that she sees that I don't see, and things that I pick up on that she doesn't, and it just works really well together. We also
have to get her book too. I definitely need to get her book, because her and we've just connected because of you, and she's actually coming on May 13th.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm super excited to have Elizabeth come on and talk about everything. She just said, I stopped writing or even looking at the manuscript while she had it. It's a heavy pause for me. I bet. I really do. I mean, I can imagine you're pouring your heart out into this. Yeah, that has to be a lot. And you probably do build really close relationships with those writers that you're partnering with, or with whoever you're writing the book with.
Oh, yeah. You carry each other's burdens. But I loved how she said she took a pause. So it was, I can't fully get into her mind, but I felt that when she handed me the book through the window of my car, I felt like, wow, this is a big moment. And also when you're writing something, so I'll use an article. Let's use an article. When you write something, and especially if it's an important story or a powerful story, for me, I get this feeling of, it's not so much accomplishment, but like, wow, like I hate to make it negative because it's not, but it's like a rush of energy that comes out, and it's in front of you now. And now you're sending it, like I have to hit that send button. And there's there's an emotional tag to hitting that send button, like sending it out. Like, to use a ridiculous cliche, it's like a piece of me goes, Yeah. And I definitely know for her, because this particular book that we're talking about, it's called Master Your Mindset, The Master's Way, has been on her heart for almost 20 years. She taught it, she lived it, she walked it. There's personal experiences in there. She's quoted and connected with so many masters of that craft in there. So I know it was a big energy rush for her, and publishing it and releasing it and launching it was a really, really great experience.
I'm laughing because she just said, I told her not even to call or text me during the review, but she kept tweeting clues about the book, secret codes. What did you do? What were you doing?
Okay. So Elizabeth, you are outing me huge, but that's okay. I love it. So for those of you that know me, and especially you, Deanna, because we met there, Twitter is my space. It is my space. My personal Twitter handle, if you know me and you follow it, it's crazy what's there. I quote my children, I quote my family, funny things that happened to me. Specifically for Elizabeth, though, I call it dropping dimes, which probably also is a little bit of a streety quote, but I love that because I'm from New Jersey and she's from Minnesota. So the more street I am, the more I make her laugh. But there were so many dimes that she kept dropping in this book. And so my instinct is to tweet it. And then my whole process, if someone writes something, I'll go in, I'll read your blog, I'll tag you, I'll post it on Twitter, maybe I'll post it somewhere else. But I couldn't do that. So I would just, put a sentence or two of something from the book. I had no idea she was even reading my stream. But like you said, mid-process, I don't know, I think I had the book for just a little over a week, maybe 2 weeks, because I stopped everything to do it and I wanted to. But mid-process, I would get a text like, about that tweet or something, and I would laugh. So I realized that she had been following me for a while on Twitter, and I didn't realize it. So yeah, that is, there's a lot to be revealed about myself on my Twitter stream. So there it is. It's all.
That is true. We did meet on Twitter, and I do see your tweets as well. but that's kind of funny. I like what Elizabeth said. I think that's hysterical how you would do that. So if somebody wanted to start writing a book, even if they wanted to write it themselves, what do they do? What do you say? Oh, we're getting some accolades over here. Wonderful job, Lori, from Janet.
Janet's a very, very close friend of mine. We grew up together. So thank you, Janet. I love that you're listening right now. That makes me very happy. So I'm going to tell you what you already know. Blog, write, put it down, journal, tweet, post on Instagram, get the words out. If you have a story in your soul that needs to come out, but you're having a hard time writing, write about something else. Write about what you're passionate about. You know, I probably, if I tweeted 8 million times, 799 million or whatever that number is about coffee, because I love coffee. But so I highly encourage that. I actually am consulting with a woman right now who I told to watch us today. So if you're out there, Daniela, hey.
Hey, Daniela.
I told her to continue with your blog. She has a blog spot, and she's a very good, passionate writer. And she's having, she wants to start the book or finish the book or move the book, but blogging is a great place. And if you're a good blogger and you have good manners on social media, you're reading other people's blogs and you're commenting on them and you're posting them and you're connecting with other authors and you're getting good ideas, right? We know this. You're in a Twitter chat with a group of authors or writers. I find that, and I don't know about you, I'd love to know what you think. The greatest community of writers on social media are Twitter. They're there on Instagram and they're there on Facebook, but Twitter, they're there. And they're supporting and writing and especially right now, chatting and inviting people to post their links so they can read their books. And so that's how you build momentum, I think, to write a book. Start with the little small things, even if it's not related to your story, but write often.
I first launched my first blog, which I made it under a fake name because I didn't want anybody to know it was me, probably 12 years ago, probably before you and I connected, which is why I was on Twitter. And it's kind of a funny story because I've been divorced since my kids were 3 and 18 months. And I don't even know, they must have been right around that 7-8-year-old mark. Now they're, 21 and 22. But I would do this online dating and the stories were horrific and funny. Like you couldn't make it up. So I would call my friends, and I have a friend in Atlanta, Chrissy, who I shared a story. She's like, you so need to blog, because it was always, my friends would always say, what happened on the date? What happened? And I would tell them, like, there's no way that happened. I'm like, oh, I promise you. It definitely happened. So I created a blog under a fake name so that nobody would know. And all my friends could just read the blog about the dating disasters. And of course they were funny and silly and whatever. But I remember my friend in Atlanta calling saying, my entire office is sitting around reading your blog.
Oh, that's great.
You're making it up. And I'm like, she's like, so you need to tell them that none of this is fiction. I'm like, Elizabeth, well, you know what? She's like, this sounds like a good TV series. So true. I've had people say that as well. And that's why people have said, you need to write a book, just with all the different crazy phases, like the dating phase. And of course, I'm not dating anymore because I have a husband, but even building my business and all this stuff. And yes, I think it would be a great TV series. I used to laugh because I watched, I'm blanking on her name. I can't remember what actress. And she was, she had all these dating disasters. And I absolutely could relate to her. I was like, oh my gosh, Mindy Kaling.
Mindy Kaling, yeah.
Yes, she was so funny. And I'm like, okay, this girl, I get you. I'm with you.
Yeah, she's like one of the great comedy writers in general of our time. Yeah. And I caught a little bit of that series, but see, you were the forerunner of that.
If I only kept it, I had so many people following me, but then I had people who I didn't want to follow me started following and knew about it. And then I got nervous because I changed everybody's name, but I got nervous because I didn't want that part of my personal life off. If I didn't know you, it didn't make a difference. But when people started to catch on, then I shut it down. And I wish I didn't. I wish I would have kept it going and just sucked it up and didn't care, because there wasn't anything bad in there. It was just funny stories. I believe everybody, this is great. I do too. I believe everyone has a book in them. I really do. We all have a story to tell to help others. Sadly, very few ever write it. Elizabeth, you and Lori have inspired me to start writing.
Yay, that's the job. We love that.
I'm on lockdown right now because I have to get surgery next week. So they made me get this COVID test yesterday, and now I'm self-quarantined. I can't be around anybody until surgery. So this is the perfect time to start writing.
I was going to say, if you connect with Elizabeth, you're going to do something fantastic, because one of the many gifts she has is she inspires you. She will inspire you. She will find what your strong point is, and she will put it out there, and she will make you put it out there. And all of a sudden you'll be so comfortable with it that you'll want it out there.
I love it. I can't wait. I am so excited. This is going to be great.
Yeah.
So anyhow, Lori, I want to thank you for coming on. This was really a good conversation. I love this conversation. Loved everything we talked about. One more time, if someone wants to connect with you, how do they do that?
So you can hop on my website, which is Let Me Tell Your Story. My writing is there. My services that I offer are there. I'm always on Twitter talking about coffee at my name, Lori Sica. But Let Me Tell Your Story has its own social handles too. So thank you so much. I loved this. This was great.
We're going to have to schedule one with me, you, and Elizabeth.
Yep.
Oh, wait, we have one last request from Elizabeth. Can you play a quick tune on one of those guitars?
Okay, so this is my son's cave. I'm literally sitting in the amp. The Fender amp is on the floor. There's 4 other guitars. So my son's a musician. Maybe we can get him to play a little on our next. I'm just his fan.
Perfect. We'll have to connect and schedule that with the 3 of us on here. So
we'll do.
Everybody's saying great job.
Thank you, George.
Thank you so much.
Love you.
Thank you, and we'll catch everybody next week. I'll see ya.
Bye.